We're barely into fall, but it's never too early to be thinking about colder weather and how to best prepare your fields. We spoke to Steve Melvin with UNL Extension about some things you can do to get ready when it comes to cover crops and irrigated fields.
Yeah, cover crops is an interesting thing. We usually think about the water use from those being a cost. You know, we just know it costs water to grow crops. But when we get to our irrigated ground, and that's what kind of our focus is here today, is on irrigated land, that many times we leave the fields fairly wet in the fall, and it's just hard to get them the level that we should. You know, right now is about the right time to start using the university recommendations to start drying the fields down and leave them fairly dry in the fall. In fact, there's a NEB guide that can be downloaded offline, and you know, take a look at a procedure to calculate that. And if we get them dried down to a level where we can store some water over the winter is what we're trying to do, and obviously not pump water, and then we get a free refill over the winter, if you will. But typically what I've seen, and using quite a bit of data to back this up, that most farmers leave the field about at field capacity with maybe as much as 2 or 3 inches of storage is about all. It's just hard to get the soil dried down. We need to keep them fairly wet so we've got a good irrigated crop, even though we can dry them down pretty good in the fall. It's just a lot of guys don't get it done. So we get, you know, in central part of Nebraska, about 14 inches of moisture off season over the winter and into the early spring. And if we've only got, you know, 2 or 3 inches of storage room, we're going to have quite a bit of that water deep percolate and or run off. And so with the cover crops on our irrigated ground, really that water that's being used by the cover crop a lot of times is just water that would have deep percolated anyway. And so there really isn't a cost to it. It's not like we need to start the pivot and pump on a bunch of water in the spring because of cover crops. But we need to have a plan. You know, if it's a dry winter, dry spring, we really need to keep an eye on that, and maybe we decide to terminate the cover crop a little bit early. If it's a wet spring, you know, maybe we even go the other extreme and plant into a growing cover crop, because that's, you know, having ET off of that crop, getting it so we can get back in the field a little bit quicker. So really the plan needs to be adaptive, so if it's a wet year or dry year, we can make changes accordingly. So yeah, if you end up planting a cover crop and killing it early because it's dry, you know, we got what we got. I mean, it's that much more than we would have had with a cover crop if we hadn't have planted anything into it. So if we end up killing it off early because it's dry, and particularly on the non-irrigated, we want to be really careful there that we don't use water that then is going to reduce our main cash crop during the summer. And so, you know, you just do what nature allows you to do. If it's a dry year, you know, you got to be careful not use the water. Well, certainly Extension has a lot of research projects going on with that, and there's, you know, most any of the Extension offices would have some of that information. There's other specialists. You can look up Crop Watch newsletter that we talk about on this program quite often, you know, has a lot of articles related to that. And so there's just a lot of places to get information.